Hi, everybody. I am Holly Celiano, and I have my guest back, Will Barney. Welcome, Will.
Hi, everybody. Good to be with you.
Everybody was anxious for you to come back because they love the information and how you tie it together and your wealth of knowledge. So I will turn it over to you, and you can update us where we last left off, which is a lot of things have transpired since then, though we still are waiting for the Clarity Act. But I'll have you deep dive into all that stuff. So turn it over to you.
Oh, well, thank you, Holly. I'm happy to kind of do a little recap, at least since we were last together, of some of the things that went down and how that's affecting all of us. Of course, last time we spoke was before Christmas, so there's been some interesting things that are going on since then. We've had silver make a breakout move the
Mm.
day after Christmas that just has escalated all the way to this point. It was $94 today. And getting physical silver was running for Silver Eagles was running $112 today here in the U.S. And they're even advertising that it's a week delay even with any orders. So that means that silver inventories are extremely tight. There have been just staying on the silver topic for a minute. There has been so far this month, the month of January, 41 million ounces of delivery. So traders are standing up, demanding delivery instead of rolling their contracts. And right now we have pegged for March some 300 million ounces of the those that are going long have already stated they want to stand for delivery. And I think there's only about 180 million ounces available. So March could be a bit scary. Okay. Meanwhile, the U.S. government has actually declared they're going to spend 2.5 billion on precious earth minerals and strategic metals, and the top of that list was silver. So if the government steps in, they end up getting priority, particularly if it's a strategic asset, which it is. They made it one last November. So silver could go to some interesting places. It actually needs to correct, though. I mean, we've seen it be depressed for far too long. The price of silver was actually so low, and even still today is a little bit too low, that when the price is below what you can physically mine it for out of the ground, we've had quite a bit of inflation over the last 20 years. And so the cost of mining today is a little different than it used to be. Existing mines already have operations going, so it's not as difficult for them. But the price has to be at a certain level in order to entice miners to come back in the game and say, okay, we're going to go after silver again, right? So a lot of the silver's been coming out of foreign countries, Peru, Venezuela, a lot of other countries that are running silver mines, where maybe they have lower economics than perhaps here in the States. But President Trump has issued an executive order action that he wants to instruct our people of our government to take a look at what's called price floors when it comes to these minerals. And price floor means that he wants the price to be at a level that it's economical for our own miners to get it out of the ground. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, so there's those are all things that are in a shift right now. Last week on my podcast, I shared the documents on that from the White House, how they were trying to shore that up. And now that they have a buy order and silver's at the top of their strategic metal buy list, you could see now the government's going to be your competition, right? And trying to get physical silver.
Question
Of
for
course, they're
you,
looking
since
for
you're
that pretty
on
heavily.
this topic. Sorry to interrupt you, but
No
um,
problem.
so do you believe with silver and gold climbing the prices that it's going to stay at that price, or will it do a market correction, or basically under the new financial system, these higher prices we're seeing will stay? What do you think on that?
That seems to be the projections. The U.S. debt clock is projecting gold will go to, 94, 9,500 an ounce, and that silver would be around 1180 an ounce. Um, that's what they're projecting based upon market conditions. Okay. So that's an interesting number. That gets you right in that range of about 7 or 8 to 1, which historically is a much better ratio of gold to silver. Coming out of the ground right now, gold to silver runs about 8 to 1 on the mining. If you looked at what are we getting mining wise out of the ground, the ratio runs about 8 to 1. So the fact that we've been running at ratios, a month and a half ago, it was 85 to 1. That's how far depressed silver was. Now it's somewhere around getting closer to 50 to 1. Um, but that's still a ways to go compared to 7 or 8 to 1.
Mhm.
So I do see gold hit an all-time high today, 47.55, and it doesn't look like it's retreating. Uh, So it looks like gold and silver are going to continue to march upwards, and silver's got a ways to go. It's because it was so depressed.
Mhm.
I tend to think its movements are going to be farther percentage wise than gold in order to get back to a sustainable level. So if we want sustainability long term in the future, we want to be at reasonable ratios of to gold to silver ratios, and the pricing does need to be high enough that it's actually economical to mine for it and to get it out of the ground. Silver's been so depressed financially. I was hearing numbers that miners need to see about $125 silver to even start thinking about getting back in the game, but they would prefer 300 in terms of trying to just be the economics of actually mining for silver.
Right.
So what we've been getting thus far, and particularly here in the US, is all silver supply has been coming from what we call secondary operations. So that means that you're mining for copper or you're mining for gold or some other mineral as a primary, and then silver is a secondary metal that comes out in the refining process. So what it'd be interesting to see that shift where the economics are there for there to actually be silver mines as a primary. We haven't seen anything like that since actually before the Federal Reserve, where people were specifically mining for silver.
Wow.
So it's at least here in the United States, it just says economically the value wasn't high enough that it was making sense. And so what I think we'll see, and what we have seen over the last 10 years, and this will pick up in frequency, is some of these old tailings from mines that were done in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They've got tailings just sitting out on the ground. And we now have like advanced refinery processes now where we can take those tailings and actually get more out of them. So I think you'll see the tailings probably scooped up fairly quick in this current environment, and then it will move to other things. So why is all this important? It's important because it's putting stress on fiat, the fiat dollar, which the Federal Reserve note is the world's reserve currency right now. And so this, as metals go up, the value of the dollar goes down, and it's not really that metals are going up. I mean, an ounce of gold is just an ounce of gold, right? Is an ounce of gold. It doesn't change anything. Same with silver. But the value of the fiat dollar to that metal is dropping significantly, which so now you need more Federal Reserve notes to buy that metal. So it tells you that there's the real strategic thing that's happening here. And the fundamentals are such that for 5 years, we have consumed more silver than has been produced. So for 5 years, we've been eating into reserves, and now the reserves are empty. There's very little reserves left. Like I said, COMEX sitting on 180 million ounces of reserves. Well, that's nothing if you have standing orders for delivery in March of 300,000 or 300 million, excuse me, versus 180. So what are they going to do in March? So March things could really shoot up. I think what will happen is it could force what you call a force majeure condition, where the comic says, "Look, we can't deliver the metal to you, but we'll give you its value according to spot price." Well, if that occurs, nobody's going to want spot price. They want physical delivery value, because right now we see a big spread. There is, as of today, like I said, a Silver Eagle, $112 dollars for a 1 ounce Silver Eagle. The spot price says that it's 94, but I don't know anybody that's being able to buy silver at 94. Nobody's getting spot price.
Right.
Maybe if you did some large quantity and you were a big company like a Samsung, Apple, LG or whatever, maybe you could get a deal, but usually not. You're usually having to pay a premium just to get the physical metal. So that's why you see separation between pricing in Shanghai, China, which cut off all exports of silver on the 1st of January. I wouldn't say all exports, but you have to have a special license if you're going to get anything out of China that is silver, which basically means it's cut off, okay? Because
Right.
not many people are going to get that special license. Um, so that has spiked the price on the Shanghai exchanges, and it's running. If our spot price over here is 94, like it is today, Shanghai could be $13 to $14 ahead of us in pricing. So they could be at 108 to 110. So it's going to be really interesting as that spread has been widening. When Shanghai first broke out, it was like $6 ahead of our spot price, and then it went to 8, and now it's like 13 pushing 14. So it's decoupling, basically decoupling. So um, for many people, they're not been watching silver, they're not in the silver game. The average person out there, they don't realize how this is affecting their lives. But the silver story is really just about a manipulation that has kept the price so low that we couldn't do anything about the volume in terms of mining capacity. Over 60%, and I think here it's closer to 64% of all silver consumption is actually in industrial uses. So that's chips, semiconductors, electronic circuits, all the things that go into advanced technology. So we're going to need more of it, right, as we roll out the golden age, because there's going to be more demand. You've got major data center AI infrastructure projects that are underway right now in the tens of billions of dollars. And all of those need silver. Electric cars need silver, so Tesla's always looking for it. Tesla will pay whatever they can pay to get it right now. And so we're going to see some additional tightening. It used to be that industrial companies would make their big purchases in the spring, and they would kind of lay out their whole next year. They'd get all their allocations lined up. And so typically, March, April was pretty big for those particular purchases. But all those companies are now active right now, here at second, third week of January, getting it now because they know it won't be available come March, right? So the demand is upward. And I was looking at Money Metals this morning just out of curiosity, and they were showing that any purchases of silver would be delayed at least a week, which means their inventories are massively tight or their orders are just through the roof and they just can't get them all out.
Right.
Either one is a concern. Okay, it really is in terms of trying to acquire it. So in our world, a lot of the audience here, probably for your program and even for mine, they want to talk about the RV and the revaluation of currencies and all of that's going on with that. But all of this is necessary. Unfortunately, this is the precursor to a flip of economic systems. And typically, you only see this kind of activity where gold and silver are surging right before a major economic downturn. We saw a lot of this back, if you go back to 2008, when the financial system broke and Lehman Brothers went bankrupt and Bear Stearns and all these companies went out. We saw metals escalate from that point. And by 2011, silver had peaked at $50. They then manipulated that market and brought it back down into the $26 range. But that was a direct result of these economic issues. So now that we're seeing metals moving again, it's an indicator that we have some economic issues, but those issues aren't necessarily the same ones we've seen before. But you have a lot of companies that are heavily indebted. That in fact, debt levels are all-time high right now. Not just governments, but privately. Credit card debt is at all-time high. It's well over $1 trillion in the United States, and you have business loans and business debts are at very high levels as well. And part of that, it was coming out of COVID. There was a lot of companies that needed to borrow to kind of get things going again, and they haven't really recovered from that completely. So we have this debt bubble in on our fiat currency system, and debt is only escalating, and it's only designed to escalate. It's a debt-based system, so you can't create new money without creating a corresponding debt to it. Whether it be money that goes to the government or whatever, you're creating a bond or a T-bill or something. There's a debt associated with that. So very different from the reset that we always talk about, because in the reset, everyone's going to not receive debt notes, uh, Federal Reserve notes in this case. They're going to get the new money, Treasury money, which is asset backed. So we're going to flip the script on the whole thing. We're going to go asset backed. So when you see metals move the way that they are, this is necessary because there has to be a precursor to the flip. In other words, even the people that are completely asleep, like your audience is really awake, so like they're awesome. All right, you have some of the best audience out there, I think, in terms of being consciously awake. But there's a lot of people asleep, and the people that are asleep, they need to see a reason as to why we're going to flip to a new system. And the metals escalating is as valid reason as anything for them. So you're going to see more drama play out that is necessary to get all of us to the same place at the same time, which is ultimately a reset. And I know that currently, patriots, at least here in the U.S., would like to see that done this year, no later than the 4th of July, preferably. Ultimately, it's a matter of when everything gets done. And there's so many issues. It's not just gold, silver, and the dollar value. There's a lot of issues, geopolitical issues. We had an issue in Venezuela. The U.S. went in and took out Maduro on the 3rd of January and is resetting all of that situation. And that was a blow to the deep state, to the cabal, whatever you want to call them, but the people who have been running the world. It was a blow to them because they were using Venezuela oil and other resources, even like silver, as a means of control to keep um, chaos and going into high alert. So you had Venezuela tied deeply in with Iran, tied deeply in with Cuba, tied even deeply in with Colombia and some other places that are problematic right now. And you had Russia and China buying most of their oil. China was getting a large amount of oil from Venezuela. And my understanding is they're still going to get oil from there, but now they're having to negotiate with Donald Trump on what they get. He did call them and told China, hey, we're open for business if you want some oil, right? But now the money flow isn't going to terrorists, cartels, and those trying to foment war. The money's now going into the people of Venezuela. So that's going to be directed through the Treasury and then through Marco Rubio directly to the people of Venezuela, so that it's actually going to its intended purpose. Now, the other thing that's interesting about that is because the money's flowing through U.S. on the way to Venezuela, a portion of that money is going to be used to buy food. So Venezuela is going to be purchasing quite a bit of agriculture products from the United States and we're going to be sending all kinds of food products and everything to Venezuela to feed their people. That'll come from the oil. So the ship's being righted in terms of all the destruction that was done there, but it's also put the cabal and deep state on notice, and this plays into what we saw last week with Greenland. There was a meeting last week with the Greenland leaders in the White House. President Trump wasn't there, but he had some people there representing him. Doug Burgum, who is the Secretary of Interior, and Marco Rubio was in the meeting. And of course, all of the liberal media said, oh, it went really badly and Greenland's very upset and all this kind of thing on the other side of it. But what really is going on there with Greenland is far beyond a just a good place to have a base for national security reasons. Okay. If you look at Greenland, Greenland is being controlled by Denmark currently, and Denmark is a monarchy. And what's happening is the whole world is being restructured, because what most people don't know is the crown in England had control of the United States and was receiving money from us. They were taking a third of all of the income tax was going to the crown for the last 100 years plus. Okay. So we were not freed from the crown here, let alone Canada, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, some of these other considered imperial, UK imperial areas. We weren't freed until 2018 when Donald Trump struck that deal and he walked in front of the Queen. And so what's happening now is people are going to start to find out that all this imperial agenda has been fomenting the war zone, the chaos, because they've been supporting the cartels, they've been supporting the gangs, and everything else that's been fomenting the chaos. And if you look at this, it really comes out of the imperialistic UK type of, it's very old, but it's been around for hundreds of years, system of control. And Greenland is an affront to that control. And it changes things dramatically. What we're seeing play out is actually the deal was already struck. Trump freed Canada, he freed Australia, he freed New Zealand, but you don't see that yet because there has to be a drama play out to show you how that actually occurred, okay, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're watching a lot of dynamics there. The U.S. taking Greenland is a move to end NATO. And what is NATO? NATO is a group of nations in Europe. They're all saying they're binding together for their national security of each of their nations against a big enemy like Russia or whatever, or China. Meanwhile, you have members of those NATO nations. One is Canada, who just had a trip to China, and they're working their deals out down there, right there. And if anybody saw the video of that, they heard the Carney call it the New World Order, this agreement with China, right? This is all part of the drama, though. It's part of the show to show you, because if once the U.S. takes Greenland, they will take Greenland. Greenland will actually be liberated from the crown of Denmark and the hegemony that is this imperialistic influence that's going around the world. If you think the MI6 isn't involved in Iran and Cuba and a lot of these other places where cartels and gangs are running wild, then you don't understand the geopolitics of what's been happening. And not just MI6, but there's other intelligence agencies in various countries that are all in the same game and actually working together on some of this, whether it be Mossad, CIA, MI6, et cetera. Okay. So what we're watching is actually a direct attack upon the cabal itself, because a lot of these leaders in Russia, particularly the countries that sent representatives to Greenland last week, there were 34 people they sent over there. I don't know why they didn't have a bigger number, but they sent 34 people to represent them. 13 came from Germany. And as we saw on Saturday, Trump put tariffs on each of those nations that did that. And so they've got a 10% tariff that just went into effect. And come June, it goes to 25%. And by Sunday afternoon, all 13 of those soldiers from Germany were on a commercial airplane back to Germany. Okay. So who's holding the cards here? What you have is you've got puppet governments in Europe that have used Venezuelan voting technology to steal their elections so that they could maintain and keep power there. Okay. Over a third of the world has used this technology to overthrow governments. Okay. So this is why Maduro was the arrest that shocked the world. Doesn't shock you and I, it shocks the deep state because he knows everybody that has done this. He knows all the people involved, all the countries involved, everything. So really fascinating how all that's playing out. So now you have some of these leaders of these European nations that are still the puppets of the cabal and are still carrying out this agenda. We have Davos going on this week, which is World Economic Forum stuff. And World Economic Forum was formed after we ditched the gold standard in 71. That's when that came into being. And look what's happened with it globally. You have the entire world enslaved, indebted up to its eyeballs, and nobody can breathe economically. So what do? You take the battle to the snake. You go right to the head of it. And so now if the US takes Greenland, the cabal's now surrounded. Russia's not their friend. They know this. And what is Russia doing? Russia's trying to take the cabal out of Ukraine. That's why they're there. Okay. They're not there to take Ukraine. Russia had a lot of territory. It's not like it needed more territory. What it did is it was taking care of a problem, much like the U.S. took care of a problem in Venezuela. The reason that we had to do Venezuela is because North South America is the U.S.'s responsibility. Ukraine is Russia's responsibility. You have different areas of responsibility to clean this mess up. You're going to see Iran get settled. You're going to see Cuba get settled. You're going to see Colombia get settled. You're going to see Greenland get settled. And you're going to have Canada sitting there in the middle. And they're going to be faced with this choice. Do I go with China and face the wrath of the U.S., or do I go with the U.S., biggest, baddest military and economic partner? There's really no option.
Yeah.
Canada is in a squeeze. So it's probably going to go one direction. But there's one other country that we have to consider that is problematic, and it kind of ties in with this imperialistic thing that's been pushed around the world for hundreds of years by the UK, and that is this Mexico situation. Mexico is being run by the cartels, not the other way around. So they own the government, basically. And you recently had Mexico actually ordered government troops to go to the border of America to help defend them against military incursion against the cartels. So what does that tell you? It tells you the cartels run the government of Mexico. If you think that the United States would clean up a problem in Venezuela to prevent these issues, would clean up a problem in the Panama Canal, and that they wouldn't clean up a problem in Mexico, you haven't been watching. Because what we saw there is what's known as the Monroe Doctrine back into full force, and that is no adversarial no adversarial countries having influence in America's backyard. That's not going to happen. So Mexico's a little further out, but it's not that far out when you think about what's going on here. So Mexico is controlled by the cartels, and they have help from intelligence agencies, okay, to keep all that stuff going. So geopolitically, we're in a war.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, we're in a war. So in this war, you have multiple weaponry. So the financial weaponry is metals and silver pushing against their fake currency, their fiat currency. And geopolitically, you have these other issues that are playing out. Cuba's been cut off from all their money from Venezuela and the oil from Venezuela. And they were tied in with Iran. So now Iran's getting the pressure. Everybody's feeling the pressure now. Donald Trump is cutting off their supply lines. and that's a part of war. Okay. So, why do I say all this? I say all this so everybody can understand that the reset comes at the defeat of the cabal, not before. If it came before, they'd steal your money. They'd find a way to steal your money. Okay. So we can't skip steps. So we got all these geopolitical issues underway, and they're underway right now because they need to get settled within this first quarter, preferably if we can even have a delivery of the baby by the 4th of July. Okay.
Right.
And the reason for that is the reason that Q gave us. Where we go one, we go all. Iraq doesn't go on its own. The U.S. doesn't go on its own. We don't just like every man for themselves. The world has to bind together here because we are at war with an enemy that wants to kill us and destroy us. That's the truth of the matter. And they are very upset with this current president of the United States because he's taking the fight to them
Yeah.
directly.
So I have a question since you were talking about Davos. So Trump has, he's having it signed today. It's the Board of Peace, and people had to put in $1 billion to be part of this. And it's basically, he's creating his own UN council. So, what are your thoughts on that?
And it's the precursor to the end of the UN.
Mhm.
You're right. There will be, in the end, all that remains is the Board of Peace. And if you're not in it, you're out. You're economically cut off, you're everything cut off. And nobody will want to deal with you. So every country is going to want to be in the Board of Peace because they want to trade with each other. They're going to want the economics and other things that come from that. But it also means if you enter the Board of Peace, you agree no more war because all the wars are banker wars, always have been. Okay. If there
Well,
wasn't money from bankers, people wouldn't engage in a war. Okay. So these things have to play out. So the Board of Peace, it's not the new UN, it replaces it completely. It's a completely different structure.
right.
It is interesting Donald Trump happens to be the chairman of this, um, which is interesting how that plays out. But I think that all these countries economically, everybody's already squeezed. They're already in debt up to their eyeballs. So they can't afford any more economic problems, which is why when Trump put these tariffs on these European nations, they blinked. Oh my gosh, they didn't expect that move, and now they're backing off. We can't fight this because economically they can't. If you look at NATO, over 60% of all the money that goes into NATO and running NATO comes from the United States. What happens if we just say we're done with NATO? We're out.
No, I think that's
They're
very
cooked.
close to the
They're
future.
cooked. It's
Yeah.
all over, and they now realize that. So we have the cabal cornered, unlike any other time in this entire endeavor for the last decade of trying to take back the world from this enslavement that they put us under, and we're getting close to the end here. And I do think that we need to be a little patient. So people are looking for the RV next week. We're not going to have the RV until we've solved these problems, but we are engaging in the problems. We're solving them right now. So you don't have to feel like things aren't being done. They are, but we're going to have to be a little patient with the process because we don't get to just arbitrarily say, well, my economic issues personally are so important that forget the rest of the world. It's where we go one, we go all. And so we need to defeat this animal and end it.
Why do you think the fee to enter the Board of Peace is $1 billion? I mean, to me that's a large number. I'm just curious why he's charging such a big ticket to be part of it.
It's it's a psychological move more than anything. Anything that you have to put money into, you care for and take ownership of. Okay. If you didn't require anything from them, they wouldn't appreciate what it is.
Mm.
They'd have zero appreciation for it. So the fact that they need to invest in it, that they need to do something about this becoming something real, means that they're all in. It shows who's got skin in the game and who really wants peace and economic prosperity. That's what it shows. So I think it was right that he do that. Um, and I think, but most importantly, I think it's a psychological issue. You know, if people get something for nothing, they become soulless. They actually lose the integrity of their own soul. If they don't have to put something into themselves or something into something they're getting back, then it ruins them. And so Trump isn't going to do things that way.
Interesting. Do you know what countries have said that they're going to join that? I don't recall what one.
You have a number of nations in the Middle East that are some of the forerunners. So Qatar,
Mhm.
Saudi Arabia, the UAE are some of those on the list. It's just now being done. So I think we will see that grow
Right.
because ultimately this is a line in the sand moment. I don't know if people realize how much this Board of Peace thing is a line in the sand. What it's telling is it's everybody is picking their side. Are you on the side of the cabal or you're on the side of the world and humanity? Pick your side. And if you put your money in and you pick your side, you now know who is who and
Right.
who's where and who's left outstanding. And everybody's going to be looking at this and they're going to be trying to determine who's going to win this war.
Mhm.
Well, we the people will win it in the end. And I found it interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody. And they said, well, you know, the U.S. is acting imperialistic by trying to take Greenland and all these other places. I said, no, what's happening here is Donald Trump already freed those nations. And the moment that they become part of the US, guess what? They now become part of we, the people government, no longer controlled by anybody outside. He's freeing them. It's not the other way around. And a lot of people misunderstand that because they look at the narratives that are being spun by cabal media
Mhm.
of things being done a certain way. And everybody's been so gaslit so much by this media over the years that it's hard to differentiate where truth and error lies.
Right.
But we're in the midst of the war, and asking everybody to join the Board of Peace and to put in their money is saying, put your money where your mouth is and make a decision. Are you in with humanity? Are you out? And so we will see this become more acute
Oh, yeah.
over the next 90 days.
Did Russia, do you know if Russia has decided to join that or not?
I've not heard on that nation.
Okay.
Um, but if you look at Russia, Trump has made some public statements that he's very disappointed in Russia and in Putin, right? I'm very disappointed in Putin. What's he disappointed about? He's not disappointed that Putin's in there trying to clean up the deep state and cabal out of Ukraine. What he's disappointed is that he didn't go in and take the head off the freaking snake and just grab Zelensky at the get-go,
Right.
like a Maduro move,
Right.
because now it's drug out into this
Yeah.
long slog and people dying, right? That's what he's most disappointed in. Like the cabal, they started from Khazaria. That's where they were known as the Khazarian Mafia. They were the Nazis, okay? That's where the Nazis come from. And they spread themselves out throughout Europe. They took over the European banking system. They kind of went and undermined the Medicis who were in banking way back, and they took control of that. They infiltrated the Vatican and got control of that. And it's the Khazarian mafia. Well, what is Ukraine today? Modern day Ukraine and Kiev is Khazaria. Okay, why is Putin being asked to clean this up? Because a couple of hundred years ago, they were creating mischief and problems. They were slaughtering and all the dark things they do. And Russia was so upset they engaged in a war and they defeated them. But they let them live. They
Mm.
said, look, you can't be going around terrorizing the world and doing these bad things. You need to pick a religion and you need to become a good citizen again. So what they do, they picked Judaism as their religion. They became Jews and they went underground. and they started a instead of an overt war, they went subversive and they infiltrated everything and took over. Once they had the banks, they took the world with central banking. So when Putin went into Ukraine to clean this up, that's the heart of the beast, if you think about it. It kind of was the heart of the beast. When he went into Ukraine, the premise was they have 13 bioweapons labs that are within the 100 miles of our border, and that's against all the treaties that we have with NATO and otherwise. No weaponry of that type within the border. So they go in targeting 13 bioweapons labs, which they did. That's why they went in surgically. If they wanted to take the country, they'd just gone on with bombs and planes and shock and awe, and probably had it in 3 days, right? But they didn't. They went in surgically to just take out these problems. But those problems ended up being way more than 13. It was 30. They then found there was 36 of these labs being supported by all different people. Some of them were supported by the Department of Defense out of the U.S. Some were supported by Israel. Some were supported by Switzerland. Some by Germany. So all these different places, right? And then what they would find is underneath these facilities, they'd find all these tunnels where they had victims down there. And some were children, some were adults, but the victims are who they'd try all this stuff on. And what they found underneath was an absolute hell. And it just shook them. They were just, they knew the cabal was bad, but they didn't know how bad it was until they got in there. And now they're in the slog of this war. Meanwhile, all of Europe, again, the NATO nations, all backing Zelensky. Oh, we got to fight back against this, because who's running NATO? They're all puppets of the cabal, primarily. Okay. Now, if you look at the countries that interfered with this Greenland thing that happened over last weekend, because I think that plane flew on Wednesday or Thursday to Greenland, there was one country that didn't participate. Who was it? Italy. So Giorgia Meloni said, "No, we're not getting involved in that. I'm backing Trump." She was the only one that actually made the right choice, and everybody else is getting slapped with tariffs. I mean, they're getting hit hard economically. So Europe is in a very interesting situation. If the U.S. pulls out of NATO, they're cooked. And they realize this, that Trump could pull the plug at any moment. Okay. The next thing is that we see it. Taking Greenland will end up being the end of NATO. NATO's going to go away. So instead, each nation, and Italy, I expect to be one of those, will step up and we'll join the Board of Peace, right? And we'll become a sovereign nation unto ourselves and have our own currency and everything again. So there's a lot of changes that are going to be happening in that regard that all lead us to the Great Reset. Because it's not just, everybody looks at this and they ask me all the time, like, well, it's a financial reset, right? We just need to get it done because I'm hurting economically right now. I'm in trouble.
All the time too.
Okay. But it's not just a reset of economics. It's a reset of everything. Mm-hmm. It's a reset of government. It's a reset of, can you imagine if everybody's got to go and vote with no vote manipulation and reset their governments, what would happen? We would live in a completely different world, I can tell you. Because the cabal is trying to manipulate the whole world through these voting systems. This is why they had to take the head off the snake with Maduro. Maduro is a key witness. He knows everybody involved in stealing the governments. Our own government, stolen in 2020 through fraud. Okay, so everybody's got to take it back. We all got to get this back. So we're resetting everything. You're seeing in the United States, because I've been documenting this, we're seeing the resetting of healthcare.
Yeah.
And now there's a new healthcare plan proposed by the president. He wants Congress to get working on it, right? We're seeing the resetting of education. We're seeing the resetting of the economy and taxes versus tariffs, right? Everything is underway. But we don't get to have our day in the sun, our magical moment of of financial relief until we get there, because the money backing the RV has demanded we get there first before we release money.
Right.
So those are the situation that we're in. And I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. It always gets, gets darkest before dawn, right? So it always feels dark in those last moments. We're in the last few months here, and it could be a bumpy ride. Okay, I'm going to be honest. It could be challenging and difficult for all of us. But if we don't realize we're in a war, and if we don't pick humanity, we're cooked. It's over anyway.
Right.
They almost had us completely.
Yeah.
They almost had us completely. We were so close to losing all of it, and we're still in the fight. We haven't stopped fighting, and we need to keep fighting. And I want everybody to look at freedom and sovereignty and their own independence as an important thing, because we need to keep fighting. In Canada, they're having a big battle there. You have the province of Alberta wanting to leave, and Alberta has 80% of the energy resources of Canada. So a year ago, they had, I don't know, 35% of the people were all pro, let's leave. What do you think that number is today? It's a majority.
Probably
It's over
80.
60 now. It could be up to 80. So if they're saying they're going to hold a vote here really soon. So within the next 60 days or something, there could be a vote in Alberta. If Alberta leaves and they take 80% of Canada's energy, it's all over. Because they're gonna choose the U.S. Because if they choose the U.S., there's no tariffs to send that oil straight to the refineries in Texas, right down the pipeline, and there'll be new pipelines built. Promise you. So, um, Canada Canada is going to join for economic and security reasons. If they're if they're separated and they have no support from the UK, which they already don't, they've already been freed. What are they going to do? Even though it looks like everybody's still paying homage to the Queen and the Crown and the whole bit. Okay, I know, I realize that. Or in this case, the King, because now it's King Charles. But I realize that's how it looks, but that's not what is actually. You're watching a dramatization play out, and this is necessary so that people that are utterly asleep can arrive at the place of reset. If they don't see the breakdown of fiat currency, if they don't see metals escalate and the whole system looks broken, they're not going to be on board with a reset. So we're going to have to show them it's broken. And that means it's going to be a rough ride. It's going to be bumpy and it's going to be challenging, but it is what it is. There's kind of the only way is through. We can't just say, I want to skip this part and step out. So
Right. Well,
I hope that's helpful.
the biggest thing for most people that cry out how much they need this is because you have the other gurus out there saying, oh my God, guys, it's happening, today or tomorrow. I've got good news. Bond people are going, this is going. And that gives everybody false hope and leads them to believe that we're there when we're not there yet. I mean, you just laid out what has to happen. You can't have the RV, like you said, go before these other things are taken care of. And we still have a ways to go with that. So, my best advice is stop listening to the people that tell you every day, every week, it's today or tomorrow, because then you're going to be disappointed that it hasn't happened and keep blaming the RV for all your woes in life. Um, it is rough. It's not easy, but if you didn't know about the RV, what would you be doing? You would be doing something different than waiting for the RV to solve all the problems. And when it happens, yes, life will be wonderful. But until then, we have to ride it out. We have one shot to get this right.
Yeah, we're well said, Holly. Amen to everything that you just said, and I think that is good advice for everybody listening here. Um, we're in a life and death war.
Mhm.
These people will fight to the death.
Yes, they will.
They don't care about you. They don't care if you live or die. That doesn't matter. They just want their control,
Mhm.
and they will fight to the death for it. So we're dealing with a very, and when you get this animal cornered, the way they're cornered right now, they will lash out in even more erratic and crazy ways. So we could see anything happen. We could see attacks come out of the blue, out of nowhere, going, "Whoa, what was that?" That shake everything up. There's any number of things that could occur because they're in a place of utter desperation.
Mhm.
Cutting off the Venezuelan system down there that was feeding the beast was a major blow.
Mhm.
It shook them. And you're going to see more moves. I do think Cuba is going to get freed in this entire process, where they are no longer going to be living under an oppressive regime, because their money's cut off. They're, economically, they can't do it. Now, the other thing that's interesting is Cuba's undergoing a health crisis right now, and it looks like somebody has released some kind of bioagent there that's causing a health crisis in Cuba right now.
I haven't
Many
heard
people
about that.
are having issues with that, and so we're going to have to watch that very closely. And of course, we're watching Iran because the Iranian regime, the mullahs, are trying to still keep control. They were going to hang a bunch of people, decided not to hang people. Trump didn't respond, but now we're finding out there were other things they did anyway, and some of it was burn people, which is a terrible way to die. So Iran is in a total turmoil, and they've been a big sponsor of terror. And most of their oil has been going to places like China. Um,
And
Russia may have been
Iraq.
getting some of it, and of course and then they have pipelines that extend into Iraq, so it joins into the Iraqi system. Um, that's not a bad thing. They have resources. If there wasn't corruption in Iran, the people would probably be thriving.
Mhm.
The same with Venezuela. There's plenty of resources that people should be thriving in a better economic fashion. So I think you're going to see these things settled very soon. And it's very clear that the United States is a president that is not going to sit by on the sidelines and just watch it happen.
Right.
He's taking the fight to the enemy, the real enemy, the invisible enemy, as he called it during COVID. It wasn't COVID. COVID wasn't the invisible enemy he was talking about. He was talking about the enemy that created COVID, right? And that's what we're still fighting today. And the good news is we've had a number of years to gain some massive ground, and now they're cornered.
Right.
Putin's holding them at bay on the top in the north, and in the Ukrainian situation, these European leaders are now wondering what they're going to do. Many in Davos this week are walking on eggshells, trying to play really nice with Trump right now because they are terrified, and he holds the cards
Yeah.
right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. So I really think that your advice to everybody to find a way to get through the next few months, whatever it is, or even up to the 4th of July, if it takes that, is probably good advice, because we need to be realistic about war. And war doesn't just end on a date. You don't get to pick a date. Excuse me. So it's going to end when you get it done with it,
Right.
right? And that's kind of what the RV is about. It's when everything's done that we get to go. And that may not be the 4th of July. I don't know. I just know it's a target date. They want to go no further than that, but it will be whatever it needs to be. That's the
Right.
ultimate reality. And so we all need to just find a way to hunker down and survive. It will be better on the other side. Second half of this year might be so fantastic that we have the best Christmas of our lives come December, right? And all the stores will be happy too because they're selling out of everything because everybody's got the money to buy it. So could end this year could end up really incredible, but I see right now that we could have some challenges particularly over the next 90 days.
So, with that, because we've done over an hour talking and we could just go on and on and on because there's so much to talk about. But with that, everybody, just put the RV on the side. It's going to happen, and just take care of yourself and your families as if the RV was not in the picture, because that's really the best advice. When you listen to the gurus, it gets disappointing every week listening to the hopium. It's going to happen, but we have to settle the world issues first and foremost before we can have financial freedom. And then we get to celebrate when that all happens. That's that will be amazing. So,
Absolutely.
Will, it was a pleasure to have you on, and thank you for your time and your knowledge and sharing. And there's just it's fascinating sitting back watching all the pieces come in to the puzzle that we didn't even know. We didn't know we were going to have a board of peace. We didn't know that was part of this. These things are kind of done in the dark, and then all of a sudden they're revealed, and it's like, oh, well, that's a very good, piece of the puzzle we needed.
I
So
think it's beautiful what is occurring, and but we all have to choose it. In closing, I just like to tell everybody the choice is yours. Ultimately, this is we the people. You're going to have to choose what side are you on. Everybody's going to get to a point of decision. Just as countries have to make decisions, so do individuals, and I think we all need to stay the course because the results of winning this battle is going to be abundance and a golden age unlike anything you've ever seen.
mhm.
It will be worth it, and you will feel that it was worth it at the end. And so I love all of you. Thank you so much, Holly, for having
Thank you.
me with you again today. And it's been fun, enjoyable. I hope some of this was helpful for people just to gain some perspective, and that we'll get through this. We're going to be okay. So it's going to be wonderful on the other side.
Yes, it will. Thank you. Bye, everybody.